On this episode of Tips from the Top Floor, we look at how bad the new Flickr situation really is, and Frank wants to know what it takes to do a 180 and go into photography for a living. This is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 847 for Thursday, November the 15th, 2018.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
Hey, hello, welcome. It's Tips on the Top Floor time. My name is Chris, and let's talk photography. Let me see. The big thing that I think we need to talk about is Flickr. Now, Flickr, and a lot of people have been angry about what Flickr is going to do, which is some form of limitation. Now, let's look at Flickr in the past. Flickr was at one point sold to Yahoo, who kept running it like the founders did, and then it was sold to Verizon, and eventually to Oath, which is Verizon's media organization. And they introduced an interesting thing. They gave everyone 1 terabyte for free. 1 terabyte of image storage space for free. And while a lot of people went, yay, awesome, that led to something that I always hated. And it pretty much turned Flickr into a picture dump. You know, people just dumped all their photos, their entire libraries, onto Flickr. And those photos got indexed. And of course, then you searched for something and you got a whole lot of stuff that wouldn't be classified as good photography. Image quality just went down on Flickr. And what Flickr is doing now is just going for let's say a quality over quantity model. And I think that's a good thing. Now let's look at what they are going to do. They will limit free accounts to 1,000 photos. They're taking that 1 terabyte out of the free accounts, 1,000 photos. And yes, that's a limitation. But you're not paying for it, okay? There's a Flickr Pro model now. If you want to keep adding more than 1,000 photos, and that'll be $50 a year, starts sometime early next year. We'll have no ads. We'll have better statistics. It'll come with a bunch of discounts. I think there's like a 20% off on Adobe's photography plan, which in itself is like worth $24 in a year. So, not too bad. Also free US shipping on Flickr stuff that needs shipping, like prints and books and things like that. There's discounts for Blurb, at least here in Europe. There's discounts on SmugMug, who's now the owner of Flickr. As a Flickr Pro user, you can upload videos up to 10 minutes, full quality. So no limitations there. But still a 1 terabyte cap. Again, free account 1,000 photos. Flickr Pro account $50 a year with the stuff that I just mentioned. Now, here are a few interesting things. And there's an article on Wired that I'm going to link here that has a few quotes from Flickr's product director, specifically on that 1 terabyte cap. And he claims today unlimited storage is not a top request for our users. In fact, fewer than 100 members in the history of Flickr have exceeded the 1 free terabyte of storage we provide. It's more important to our users that we store their photos in full resolution. Well, I have to believe him there. And for me personally, that 1 terabyte is not a limitation whatsoever, because I never felt I wanted to use it as a backup location for my photos. And you get full resolution. As a comparison, Google caps the resolution, I think, at 16 megapixels and video at 1080p. If I look at my personal statistics, I've been on Flickr almost from the beginning. And I have 1,500 photos on there. And it doesn't even use like 1 gigabyte. So storage space doesn't matter to me. But I've really been very unhappy with how Flickr developed over the years. And that really started when they gave everyone that 1 terabyte of photo storage. And I never liked the fact that Flickr has turned into like a picture dump without any concerns for quality. I want a platform that cares about good photography, that cares about sharing your best photos. And Flickr always had that promise for me until Verizon came along and changed that. And of course, if you use Flickr, the Flickr 1 terabyte as a cheap backup destination, I can understand if you're unhappy about if you're not happy about that change. But you know me. If you're listening to this for any time, you know me. I'm all about editing, about limiting what you show. If you show 10 strong pictures from an event, your message will be so much more clear and loud than if you share 1,000 mediocre photos from that same event. And if you've read my workflow at 1hour1000pics.com, that is exactly about that. It's exactly about quickly boiling down your photos to a small selection of your very best work. And the way Flickr will change supports exactly that. So this is totally awesome. If you want to keep dumping all your tens of thousands of photos somewhere for free, then there are other places that will let you do that. Maybe not at full resolution, but maybe with some limitation. But giving everyone 1 terabyte for free was never a sustainable business model until that data got mined for other financial gain. That's always the thing. If you get something for free, you are the product. And I'm not a great fan of business models like that, you know? Giving something for free, but then using that data for God knows what. So for me, wanting this to be a quality photo sharing platform, I'm a great fan of what Flickr is doing here. And if you are into sharing photos and especially into sharing your best photos, then the free 1,000 photo limit will actually help you. Or as Orson Welles once said, the enemy of art is the absence of limitations.
Hi Chris, it's Frank from Frankfurt, Germany. I've got a rather untypical and untechie question for you. I think in one of your episodes I picked up that you also have an engineering background. Here's my thing. I've worked as a software engineer for the last 10 years and I'm kind of getting sick of it. I feel it's time for a change and I would love to do more with my photography. How did you manage to switch from engineering to photography? Do you think it's possible to combine engineering and photography? And are there any tips you could give me? I love your show. Greets from Frankfurt to Hanover, Frank.
Hello to Frankfurt. Hi, Frank. Yes, I do have an engineering background as well as an artistic background. And I guess the reason why I'm here is those two things coming together. And back in 2005, I made that transition from a tech-centric job. Well, it was more of a tech and project management and some technical account management and some technical marketing-centric job. But I've done lots of different things. But yeah, very tech-centric. And I have made that transition to self-employment in 2005, 13 years ago. And well, let's say that's when that transition started. But honestly, I still don't think that transition is over just yet because there's something new to learn every day. And there are many moving targets and threads to keep together all the time when you juggle a business like this. So yeah, this whole thing can still feel a bit overwhelming at times. So Frank, you said you've been a software engineer for 10 years and you're getting fed up with it. And you say it's time for a change. You want to do more with photography. First of all, that's awesome. I mean, it's not awesome that you feel that you don't feel happy in your current job, but yay, photography is great. And I'm not saying it's easy, okay? I would even say it's virtually impossible right now to become a full-time photographer and make a living from it. Over the last 15 years, the photography market has been changed. It changed with the availability of cameras with super high image quality to virtually anyone. And as a result, there has been so much great photography out there. It's mind-bending. Of course, that has also come with a ton of bad photography, but that's what like democratizing a market means. I've seen that same thing when I started doing professional music production at around 2003. That was typically the realm of music studios, of expensive and specialized equipment, but silently in the shadows, the home recording business was beginning to take off, and many people like me could finally get their hands on equipment that was capable enough to at least partially push the bigger studios off their thrones. Big expensive analog effect circuits kind of went away, at least for a while. They were beginning to move into plugins inside of computers. And first they weren't that good, but then they became better. And finally you could replace stacks and stacks of expensive gear. The move from analog to digital changed many things there. And I was part of that wave, and I had the chops to deal with all of that because like of my computer background, because I felt comfortable around those machines. And I did some great productions during that time. I also learned my ropes when it came to the pressures and stresses of keeping all of that running during like a heated live concert. That was very exciting, doing a 24-track recording off of a stage. And you can't just go, okay, let's do that again. I had a technical glitch here. No, you have to have backups. And anyway, around that time, I was also beginning to see traditional music studios die. There was a big dying off of music studios because a new wave of producers took away some of their business. And now we've seen the same thing in photography. With pro level gear being available to everyone, kind of the entire darkroom moving into the computer. Oddly enough, we're just here in the Viewfinder villa. We're just building our own analog darkroom again. So we're bringing some of that back. But does that sound familiar? The darkroom moving into the computer? Well, it is. But for me, it is not only being at the right spot at the right time while having the right skills. I think these things should come together. That is certainly helpful. But over time, I also had to learn that it takes a bit more than just the fun parts of the job to become your own boss and run your own business and do something else. Now, I'm not saying you have to go self-employed, but you're looking for a change, right? But if that self-employed route is interesting for you, I mean, there's office work, there's taxes, the whole business thinking is a long learning process, and it's still going on a daily basis for me. I also believe that what I have personally managed to do isn't that easy to replicate, because in hindsight, it took a specific mix of skills to get me to where I am. And yeah, I know this sounds very negative, but I'll try to turn it around into something positive at the end. The skills. I mean, of course, you can and should learn new skills, but if you already have a certain like set of strengths, it'll just be easier to kick something off. I mean, my workshops and the photo travel wouldn't have been possible without a few factors that are completely outside of me liking photography. For example, I came from a business background. I had already spent over 10 years in the industry to learn, and not in the photo industry, in the computer industry, to learn about stuff like project management, about marketing, about teaching. And those parts of my previous jobs proved to be really valuable when trying to start my own business. They really helped me. Not that I was perfect at any of those, but I at least had some ideas, some stuff that I could build on top of. Second, again, the skill set. I just know I had a good skill set for what I was going to do. I didn't have like a fresh start in photography. I already had quite a bit of experience under my belt, even though not formalized. But that was pretty much the point when I started formalizing things and, starting to, think about things in a more structured way. And going into podcasting, the thing you're listening to right now, that kicked off one of the steepest learning processes that I've ever had. And of course, speaking of skill set, knowing photography and wanting to talk about it is one thing, but back in 2005, to get a podcast off the ground, you had to have the right computer skills, the right internet skills, and the audio production skills. And not you didn't have to, but it was very helpful if you had them. And I was just in a lucky position to have had at least some level of experience in all of those. And the one skill I didn't really have at that point was like the business kind of skills. And I'm not really good at that, but the stuff I learned in my previous job kind of was at least helpful in that respect. Now, I'm not saying you can't learn any of those skills. You certainly can. But that combination did take a lot of the friction out of it for me, which in turn helped me survive those first few years. Okay, we talked about my background. We talked about the skill set and how that was helpful in getting the business off the ground. But now let's talk about one additional factor that I think shouldn't be underestimated, and that is serendipity, luck. Because being at the right spot at the right time has turned out to be one of the keys in getting this podcast off the ground. And then the podcast has become pretty much the starting point, the basis of virtually all my other activities. And I create my podcast, and I started my podcast because I love to talk about things that interest me. And I love to support others in learning something new. That support role has been kind of part of my entire life. Even when I played music in bands, the bass player, that's a support role. That's a role that's not shiny, not in the front, but it supports the others in the band to make good music. So I kind of find myself in that role a lot. And the feedback that I get from many of you is what keeps me going. Hearing about your successes and knowing that some of you even have chosen their career based on this little show. That's what makes me going. What keeps me going, what makes doing this all worthwhile for me. And in the end, I believe it's kind of a karma thing. I'm paying into the karma bank and good things come back. And some of the long-term listeners might remember when my studio was burgled early on. And that was shortly after I had kicked off my own business, my own self-employment. And the loss of equipment back then almost broke my back. And you guys came around and you collected money to help me survive. And that was one of the most overwhelming experiences of my life. I mean, you should have seen me sit in the corner and go, holy cow. But then those podcasts have also turned into becoming great platforms that I can use to talk to an audience. And that might probably be the most important thing when it comes to making this work. You can be like 100 times better than anyone else, but it won't be easy unless you have like a way to reach people, to let people know that you are better. The platform is key. The platform is very, very important. So back to you, Frank. Sorry for going on this long detour. Frank, back to you. What does that leave us with? I mean, you're looking for a change, and I'm telling you that this is a very hard thing to do, and that you need luck and serendipity. And I know that's not very helpful, but without knowing you personally, let me try with one piece of advice, something that has really helped me in getting what I'm doing here off the ground. And that is whatever you do, try it on the side first. Don't just quit your job. 15 years ago, before I went self-employed, I went to my boss. I let him know that I wanted to start my little company on the side. And my boss said, yeah, sure. Do that as long as it doesn't interfere with what you do here. It's fine. And I called it Top Floor Productions because the top floor is where I lived and like on a top floor of a building, and that's where I ran it from. And that's how the name of this show came along. And I did what I did in my spare time on the weekends. I sometimes had to take a day off from work to work on a project, and I just waited to find the right point in time to do this for myself. But I was never like gonna go to my boss and say I quit. And then because a paycheck every month is kind of worth a lot. And then in 2005, the company I worked for took that decision for me, and they laid off a bunch of people, 5,000 people here in Europe, and I was one of them. So I was kind of being pushed into the deep end, and I didn't choose this. The choice was made for me. And at that point, I could have tried to find another job, but I decided to try this on my own. I was like, okay, if not now, when? So now, Frank, you also have a unique skill set. And that is the engineering background. If you want to combine engineering and photography, I believe this is the right time. And as a software engineer, you have an incredible skill set to get started in that field. There's a ton of machine learning related activities in photography right now. So a computer science background is probably one of the best things you can have at this point. Also, cameras are becoming more computational every day. We are at the brink of several paradigm shifts in photography that all have to do with computing. AR, for example, will be an integral part of our lives sooner than you think. Mark my words, and it'll be even more pervasive than our smartphones are right now. And that plus computation, that together with computation will change photography in fundamental ways. In what ways, I don't really know yet, but maybe that's for you to find out. Try many things, explore, and do them while you still have a regular income through your day job in software engineering. And when the opportunity comes, you will be ready and prepared. Wow, this episode is getting really long. Anyway, I can only do these shows with your help, with your questions, your input. That's what drives Tips from the Top Floor. So next time you wonder about something in photography, pick up your phone, fire up your voice recording app, and record your question for the show. Send it to voice@tfttf.com for a chance to get it answered here. That's voice@tfttf.com. Oh, one more thing. Where are you listening to this right now? At this very moment, take a photo, post it on your social media with hashtag tfttfrightnow to share it with all of us. Now here's a shout out to Mike who just did that. He's in Iceland at one of the famous waterfalls at Seljalandsfoss. Let me try that again. Seljalandsfoss. And he posted a picture of his camera on a tripod protected by a hotel shower cap. And I know that waterfall, and yes, there's a lot of spray. So thanks, Mike, for sharing that. Link is in the show notes, and do the same. Where are you listening right now? Hashtag TFTTF right now.
Hi, Chris. This is Scott. I wanted to make a comment about your new book, Wide Angle. To be honest, I was reluctant about getting it first. I'm new to photography, and the title is Wide Angle, and I felt like that was really a niche book. I'm trying to understand photography in general, and a whole book just on wide angle didn't sound that appealing. But I like you, I like your podcast, so I thought I'd give it a try. And happily, as you've pointed out several times in the show, the book really isn't that niche, and I've learned a lot about photography, and I won't go into all the details in depth of what I learned from it, but I thought I'd give one example that's relevant for me. I'm looking at buying my first interchangeable lens camera this fall, and I've been thinking about this for the last 2 years, what I want to get, and I take some pictures of the Milky Way, and I like landscape shots. So I figured what I was going to do is buy a really good wide-angle lens with a low f number. I figured that would allow me to do both of those things really well. And I was set on that path. And then I read your book. And in your book, you talk about the example of someone going to the Grand Canyon and taking a picture with a wide-angle lens and how disappointing the result is. And that was a real epiphany. So and then you go on to discuss the normal lens and what the eye sees and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for covering that. You know, I don't have the simple solution of buying one lens anymore, but I'm aware now of what I should get and the trade-offs, which I was totally unaware of before. So it was really helpful for that. Enjoy the book, and thanks for the podcast.
Thank you so much, Scott. I love hearing that. Yeah, that was the goal of the book, to throw in a lot of little ahas, a little epiphany here and there about things that people don't usually think about when they think wide angle. And I'm so happy that I was successful doing this for you. So yeah, enjoy the book and keep on shooting. All right, that was it for this episode of Tips on the Top Floor. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for being subscribed. By the way, if you're not subscribed, go to wherever you get your other podcasts, search for Tips from the Top Floor, and you will get future episodes in your sleep. Of course, if you like this episode, let me know by giving Tips from the Top Floor a rating on iTunes. That's really the most important place to see Tips from the Top Floor, or by supporting it in any other way. Patreon, word of mouth. I'm very grateful for all your support, and every little bit helps. Thank you so much. More at tfttf.com/support. And of course, if you want to contribute anything, if you have an opinion about any of the things I talked about, the Flickr thing, or how to transition from one job into photography, then let me know. Send a voicemail to voice@tfttf.com. That's voice@tfttf.com. Music for the show by Jeff Smith, silent partner in Hans-Peter Gagrid Publishing, and Slack challenges by Release Pixie, Matt, Ravsitar Armstead, Slack invitations by Chief Invitation Officer, CIO, Rusty Russ. The link to get on the Slack is in the show notes. And don't forget, this time around, the Slack challenge is a very short one. So to participate, maybe you want to listen back to episode 846. It's the Silhouette Slack challenge, and you can participate over on the Slack. My name is Chris Marquardt. You'll find me on social media, including Mastodon, still at Chris MarQuardt. Now go out and take amazing photos. Share them with the world. Be nice to each other. And happy shooting.